Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to PBALC's Literacy Speaking live stream, our first for 2025. So we renamed our live streams to Literacy Speaking because we're speaking about literacy and authors are a big part of literacy. And so we're excited to welcome our first author of the year, Mrs. Marcy McKay.
Thank you, Alba.
Out of the panhandle of Texas, the
Thank you very
Amarillo,
much.
Texas area. We are so happy to have you. I know we had some technical difficulties and we were able to feature you last week, but we're here today and we are excited to get into it and talk about your books and about yourself. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it?
I love it. And as you pointed out before we hopped on, this has been the Januariest January of all Januaries. So
Yes,
I think there's
everybody.
a lot to unpack about stress.
Absolutely. Everybody I talk to is just so stressed out and burnt out, and it's not even the end of January.
Nope.
So we're like, oh no, if this is how the rest of 2025 is going to be, we need some help, Marcy. So in help, Marcy, and tell all of our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Marcy McKay. I was born and raised in Amarillo, and I had published two novels. And in the summer of 2017, my family had a house fire, literally a house fire, and the house did not burn to the ground. They were able to save the majority of our belongings, but Alba, overnight I fell to pieces and I didn't understand what was happening, and I kept trying to tell myself it wasn't that bad, and just all the pick yourself up by the bootstraps life hacks I had been taught, and nothing helped. And I went to one very highly recommended therapist, that didn't help. I went to another, that didn't help. I went to church more, I went to yoga more, I drank kale juice, nothing helped.
Yeah.
And so I jokingly say I went on a journey to Humpty Dumpty myself back together again. And what I found out about 2 years later was so transformative. Everything in my life got better. And so when the pandemic hit in 2020, I wrote the book Transforming Your Stress, in parentheses, when life feels like a house fire. And I think everyone has had multiple metaphorical house fires in the past several years.
Absolutely. I think we've all felt them just in this month. Right.
Right, right.
And you're and so how did you become an author? Because I know transforming your stress is not the first book you've written. So
No.
how did you find that journey?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's kind of two avenues. The fall of 1995, a voice, and this is a true story, a voice woke me from a dream and told me to write a book. And I wrote several books that are under my bed and they will never see the light of day. But then in 2015 I published my first novel, and this is pennies from Burger Heaven. But sort of in my pay the bills life, years ago I was the executive director of a leadership nonprofit. So I've always been
Okay.
into personal development and helping people work and play better in the sandbox of life. So I worked with
Mhm.
not-for-profit boards and businesses. And so when I sort of figured out my own stress patterns, and when the pandemic hit, I thought, oh, this will just be, several blog posts that I'll share with people. Well, it grew into a book and got published in October of 2020 and hit number one on Amazon hot new releases. And I was like, okay, people are stressed. They need to understand this stuff.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the fiction route and the nonfiction route.
And so from we're mostly going to talk about transforming your stress, the
Absolutely.
novel. But the pennies from Burger Heaven,
Uh-huh.
how was that journey for you as far as writing? How did you come up with the characters? Did you know how did all that come about?
That is such a good question. Okay, so I need to tell you up front, writers hear voices, and I, and I don't mean that like in a Sybil, I have multiple personalities sort of way. Just writers hear voices.
Mhm,
I think whether you write poetry, nonfiction, fiction. So I was at the historic cemetery in Amarillo, and this is a cemetery I've been to countless times because my
mhm,
father's buried there, my grandparents, all of my husband's family. But there was something about that fall day back in 2008. I drove through the wrought iron gates of this historic cemetery, and I heard this voice in my head, and it was a little girl. And when I went home and started writing down what I heard this little girl telling me, I realized that she and her mom lived at the cemetery, and she woke up one morning and her mom was missing. And I was like, where is this child's mother? And
mhm.
started, I wanted to find out what happened. And that's what evolved into Pennies from Burger Heaven. And so for readers and moviegoers, the book and movie that my book gets compared to is Where the Crawdad Sings, because
Oh yes.
it's kind of a darker story told by a child. But this, even though my main character is a 12-year-old, to me it's adult fiction, because even though it's told by a child, when you start filling in the blanks, you're like, oh, this is not good.
Mhm.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the novel.
That is so interesting how that
Thanks.
story came about because I'm originally from the Amarillo, Texas area. And
Oh,
so I
perfect.
know which cemetery you're talking
Oh
about. And
yeah,
that
it's
cemetery
Lano
has so
Cemetery.
many stories.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it's so interesting if your pennies from Burger story would actually be,
Uh-huh.
real.
Yeah, yeah. And so in the novel, the cemetery is called Eternal Peace. But yeah, it's based on the historic cemetery in Amarillo, Lano Cemetery. So and
Yes.
and this ties into literacy, Alba. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody's life is stories. And that's why
Hmm.
literacy is so important, because to me, if I had to pick one word to convey the importance of literacy, it's freedom. It's economic freedom. You get better jobs to support you and your family if you can read. It's personal
Absolutely.
freedom, because you can find out at the grocery store, you can read the labels. You, if you need to get somewhere, you can read the road signs. I mean, it gives self-confidence. It's connected with better health. I mean, literacy is everything. It is such
Absolutely.
a key to a happy, healthy life.
Absolutely. We completely agree here at
Yeah,
the Permian Basin Debt
yeah,
Literacy Center. And so it's been so interesting how you became a writer. It's
thanks.
your pathway is so much different than most authors that we speak to. And so it's
Yeah,
just very
yeah,
interesting.
thanks.
And how you develop your characters too.
Yeah,
It's
to
like
me, it's just
most
kind of
people don't.
like it's like a friendship, like
Uh-huh.
you and I don't know each other, but if we were to go to coffee, I would want to know, what's your favorite color? Where'd you grow up? And so I just kind of organically have to get to know my characters.
And some authors say, "Oh, I based this on a friend that I had years ago, or I had this
No,
character's based on somebody that I met here." And no, most authors don't say, "I based this character on a vision that I had, or
right,
at a
right. A voice
cemetery,
in my
right?"
head. A voice in my head.
Or
Absolutely.
an issue that I had in my life,
Yeah.
how to fix it. So let's go back to transforming your stress.
Yes.
Tell our viewers about that book. And you talked a little bit about how that book came about, but
Yes.
what do you want like our viewers? What's the biggest takeaway you want our viewers to take from that book? And if you'll read a small selection out of it too,
Absolutely.
and
I
Help us with our stress, Marcy.
Absolutely. So, this is probably before the pandemic. And so the number I'm about to share, I know will be higher. But the day I started writing this book was in March of 2020, and I Googled the word stress. It got over 1 billion hits. Like it gave me 1 billion references for the word stress. Now,
Mhm.
Google's taken away that you can't see, like, the number of interested hits for a particular topic, but I feel quite confident that the word stress would have way more than 1 billion hits on it now.
Mhm.
Everybody has stress. And so my book, our body has our brain and our body, we're like a walking talking computer, Alba, and we have
Mhm.
1 billion, that is billion with a B, nerve fibers in our body, and our brain is constantly communicating to one another. And so whatever your patterns are, good and bad, to love, to work, to money, to exercise, to play, to spirituality, that's a pattern to some sort of relationship from the past. And they say that your patterns become set by the time you are 7 years old. They're double down set by the time you're 14 years old. And so it's not apples to apples. And so if
Mhm.
you think about that friend who you know who keeps dating or marrying the wrong person, or they have maybe a full bottle of wine when they shouldn't be drinking at all. And so it's really easy to find the stress patterns in other people. It's harder to find our own. And so my book kind of helps you connect the dots to your physical stress patterns, your emotional stress patterns, and the root cause. Like, where did all this begin? So
Okay.
the main takeaways I want people to know that I didn't know, that I wish I'd known the day of our house fire, is number one, your brain and your body, even though this is 2025, our brain and our body thinks that it's like caveman times, like Fred Flintstone. And so instead of fighting, your brain actually thinks that you're fighting lions, tiger, saber-toothed
Mhm.
tigers. But today, that's overwork, an overflowing email inbox, being there for your family and friends and helping them deal with their stress, as well as our own stress problems.
Mhm. Personal, it's work, personal,
Yeah,
family,
because it's
kids.
it's all it's all connected, and we're hardwired for community. So if someone you love is struggling, you feel that pain too. And since
Mhm.
nobody has a perfect life, everybody's dealing with stress. So okay,
Mhm.
our brain and our body is like a walking talking computer. So here's takeaway number one.
Okay.
Your brain and body does not like change of any kind. Let me say that again. Your brain and your body does not like change of any kind. Now, isn't that hilarious? Because
Uh-huh.
that's all life is change. So the bigger the change, the more freaked out you get.
Mhm.
And depending on what your patterns are in dealing with stress, it's going to freak you out. And so we all have healthy and unhealthy habits of dealing with stress. And so fan favorites that are not healthy are food, alcohol,
Mhm.
drugs, numbing out on TV or social media or shopping. Maybe you like step away from everybody and you stop answering your phone. Maybe you're that busybody that's in everybody's business because you know how to fix it. So we have all these ways. And so it shows up in our lives as anxiety, insomnia, self doubt, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination. And my book, helps you find out what your biggest stress patterns are. Mine is perfectionism. Over caretaking. I'm that person who has a long history. I'm the go-to person. I was the fixer of my family. All my friends come to me with their problems. I used to love that, and then it just started burning me out. And
Yeah.
plus, I was robbing people the opportunity of learning, their own growth and letting them do things for themselves. So perfectionism, over caretaking, and hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is that no matter what the situation is, you're like, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if
Mm,
that happens? I mean, it can be great at work because you can like doom scroll every which
mm-hmm.
way of what the possible what ifs are, but it
Mm-hmm.
gets exhausting. It gets
Mm-hmm.
exhausting. So, number one, your brain and your body, it doesn't like change of any kind. We've got to get better at dealing with change because every day is a brand new day. And
Right.
so even though you might have that neighbor that gets on your nerves and he's always complaining about your lawn or whatever it is, every day's still a new
Yeah.
day. Every day is always full of change. And so we have
Well, I
got
mean,
to get better.
you can, I'm a planner. And so you can have
Yeah,
your whole day plan. I'm like, I have a meeting from this day, and this. And you go, I even schedule like, okay, I need to go check the post office from this. Like, let's say you go and check the post office, drive to check the post office, and somebody rams into you. That was
right.
unplanned. And so, how do you deal with that unplanned stress? You have to learn how
Absolutely.
to deal with
Absolutely.
changes like
Absolutely.
that to your
Or
schedule.
or that person whom you love, but they text you and their life is falling apart and suddenly you feel like your whole day is thrown off because you have to help this person whom you love. And
That's
so
so funny
yeah,
because I just got a text this morning from a family member, and I'm like, oh
exactly.
no, I already had a chaotic day, and this just throws me
Exactly,
off.
exactly. But the thing with, getting backed into, that's its own kind of mini house fire. You deal with it, but then once you start practicing, like for me, I didn't have to handle it perfectly
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't fall to pieces. And just to move on because I could replay and replay and replay. I should have done this. That person should be doing that. I wasted so much mental energy worrying about the past. Well, the past is over. Learn from it and start incorporating in your life. I call movingon.com. Marcy, let it go. We're movingon.com. That
That's a
kind
good
of
one. I'm
thing.
gonna
So,
start using
okay.
that.
Yeah. So, number one, your brain and your body, it doesn't like change of any kind. Number two, your brain and your body does not know the difference between good stress and bad stress. And
Okay.
man, those who us are fixers and even non-fixers, we are so good. Stress feels normal. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, stress is a part of life, but when you really start figuring out your stress patterns, you can like sort of dial down that critical voice in your head. And like the best example I learned about this in helping someone, Alba, I was giving this talk in person a couple of years ago, and this woman came up to me probably in her mid 20s, and she had giant tears in her eyes. She was like, you have solved the biggest puzzle and problem for me. She was like, I got married 6 months ago. I got married 6 months ago. I moved to Amarillo from Dallas. I got a brand new job. We bought our first house. She said, I love Amarillo. I adore my husband. Our house is the cutest thing ever. I have the best job I've ever had in my life. And I am waking up at 2 o'clock every morning and crying alone in the bathroom for about two
Oh.
hours. And I don't tell my husband the next day because I don't want to upset him. And I don't understand why I'm doing it. She was like, you
Mm-hmm.
just explained to me I've changed every single thing in my life, and my brain and my body are freaking out. She was like,
Yeah.
now I kind of understand that my body just wasn't feeling safe, even though all of this is good. I am so
Mm-hmm.
happy and her life got better. Does that make sense? Can you
Uh-huh.
see good
And so
stress and bad stress?
how do we solve that? It's like if your body's having this reaction, how
Right.
do we not I don't think you can control it, but how do
Right.
we
Make
get
it
over it?
better.
Yeah.
Make it better. That is such a
Okay.
good question, Alba. So, are when you try to be like, calm down. It's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. Stop freaking out. Well, that doesn't work because
Right.
your body doesn't understand words. Your
Right.
body only speaks body. So find the things that help your body feel calmer. So
Okay.
throw on a pair of tennis shoes and go for a walk around the block. Walk into the bathroom and close the stall and push against it like you were trying to move a mountain. Don't do it against the door because I'd hate for you to fall. But like, against one
Uh-huh.
of the stalls where it's grounded, you're not gonna fall through it. But like push against it as hard as you can to like get some of that energy out. In fact, literally,
Okay.
if you've
Do
got a
something
pet,
physical to get the
do
energy out.
something
Okay.
physical. Or if you can't do that, get on YouTube, watch a funny video from a favorite movie. If you like love classical music, listen to something to calm you down. Go out into the sunshine and feel the sun on your face. Or if it's nighttime, get under the beautiful night stars. Just find out what it does to calm you down, but in a
To
healthier
help your
way.
body ground itself, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. Say to,
1000%.
to kind of tell your body, I'm
Right.
okay. It's
It's
okay. We're
okay. It's
good.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is not a saber-toothed tiger. There are no lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Call a friend. Call a friend, but say, "Hey, I need to vent. Can you listen to me for 5 minutes?" But yes, get it out of your body. But then there are so many of us who are perfectionists, or we procrastinate or whatever. When you start to learn that that's your pattern, you can realize, okay, I did do or not do whatever it is you're trying to change. And look, I survived. It
Mm-hmm.
truly is our brain. We still have this reptilian brain that thinks it's the caveman times and that you're going to like something catastrophic's going to happen. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt how I got really really stressed when we tried to do this interview a week or two ago, and like technology, and it's like, it wasn't your fault, it wasn't my fault, there wasn't anything we could do about it, and we were like, okay, we're going to have to reschedule. And I just, I went for a walk and kind of stomped it out, and I was like, Marcy, it wasn't your fault, it wasn't the Literacy Alliance's fault.
It
Life
wasn't anybody's
happens.
fault. Just
M-
happens.
Exactly.
Things happen.
Moving on.com.
And it's so funny because it's like, I know I could kind of feel that you were stressed out about it, but
Oh,
we weren't
yeah.
stressed out. We're like, this happens often,
And
it's just
see, and that's
technology is
it.
just, sometimes it works and sometimes it
Yep.
doesn't. We just
And
reschedule, move on,
yeah.
and keep going.
But you know what, Alba? This is a perfect example. It did not stress you out
Hmm.
because you do this every week. And so this
Yeah.
happens to you a lot. Well, this doesn't happen to me a lot. And so you were
Yeah.
like, chill. And I was like,
I'm like, we're gonna get it done. We're
yeah.
gonna feature Marcy one
and
way or
and you know
another. It's
what,
not gonna.
this worked out so much better. And so I think things usually, not always, but things most times, things work out the way they're supposed to,
Absolutely.
if the control freaks will just chill out. Yeah.
And so, can you talk a little bit and maybe read a selection out of the book too, about how our stress patterns, how do they evolve with people? It does it, I guess I'm assuming that your environment has a lot to do with it
So
and how
much.
you're brought up and
So
your
much
culture.
because absolutely everything, D, all of the above of what you just said. So when we, like I said in the beginning, our stress patterns become set by the time we're 7, double
Mm-hmm.
down set by the time we're 14. So whatever you grew up in, good or bad, and we've all had good or bad, it
Mm-hmm.
it shapes your relationship to everything, to work, to family, to love, to
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, to exercise, to rest and play, to your job. And so you can't connect the dots literally. Like when the pandemic hit,
Mm-hmm.
nobody could say, oh, that pandemic back in kindergarten. It's like the
Right.
feelings that it brings up. So you just kind of have to go from there, if that makes sense.
So I remembered what I was going to ask you about COVID and
Yeah,
patterns and things like that, because everybody handled the
so
pandemic very
differently.
differently, but so
So
many
differently.
people went into depression or were
Yes.
extremely stressed out, and other people just like kind of went with the flow and are like, okay, this is just another, we're just going to have to pivot and do this and do that and do this. But
Absolutely.
there's surveys out now, or results out, that there's so many people went through some major depression during
Yes.
COVID, and
Yes.
had some, had some other um, things that occurred to them, because I think they just didn't know how to handle the stress of I mean, the pandemic was a big change
It
for
was. And so
everyone. So,
that was number one, my number one tip or lesson to the extreme. Your brain and body does not like change of any kind. So unless you were alive during the 1918 Spanish influenza,
mhm,
nobody on the planet had ever been through a global pandemic before. And so
mhm.
everybody was freaking out and handling it different ways. And so, yeah, that makes sense. So, do you want me to read the last part of the book?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Read a selection for our viewers, and
yeah.
then we'll talk
So,
about some.
this is the end of the book, and it's called Rising from the Ashes. Although I thought our house fire was the worst thing to ever happen to me, it turned out to be one of the best things to ever happen to me. It forced me to deal with so many issues, topics I didn't even realize were problems until my life got so much better. And it is so much better. That fire alarm continues to ring through my brain and body at times. It doesn't happen nearly as often, and the volume is much lower, but it does still happen. Except now it doesn't frighten me like it did back in 2017, because I understand my stress patterns and realize I'm just being triggered again. It has sounded off inside of me for a reason. So I just need to clear away the smoke to find the real problem and make the noise go away. Thank you for reading my book. You've given purpose during one of the most bizarre times during modern history. This was during the pandemic. The number one thing I want to leave you with from reading this is hope. No matter what has happened to you in the past, no matter what your personal house fire is, and make no mistake, everybody's had some kind of house fire. No matter how awful, unfair, or bad something is, you can move beyond your pain to enjoy deeper, richer connections to yourself and others. I believe this with all of my heart. I've also experienced this in my marriage, with my 2 kids, with friends, families, and I've been honored to walk with my clients through similar transformations. The more we change our inner world, the more it changes our outer world. That's huge because humanity desperately needs us listening to each other, talking to each other instead of screaming at each other, within ourselves and individuals, as families, as organizations, as countries. The world needs healing because life shouldn't feel like a house fire. I wish you well.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Marcy.
Thank
Um,
you.
Definitely a book that everybody needs to add to their reading list, especially in this new year with all these changes happening around us.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there's just
new
in
house
January
fires.
so many changes in administration and president and in policies, and so a lot is being thrown at us right now. So this is a perfect book to get you through your year and transform your stress and thrive in this new year, right? Not just survive, thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So tell us, I know this book is wonderful, but what other projects and books are you currently working on, Marcy?
The little homeless girl, I've got two books about her, and I'm working
Okay,
on number three to finish out her story.
awesome. So make sure and check out Pennies from
From
Burger Heaven,
Burger Heaven. Yes, yes, yes,
Transforming Your
yes.
Stress.
Yes.
And where can people purchase your books or get more information about you or your books?
Anywhere online where books are sold.
Okay. We always want to remind people to um, uh, purchase books from independent bookshops, or
Oh, absolutely.
'cause we're
Absolutely.
very supportive of independent bookshops. So if you
Yes.
can, I know Marcy's books are available on Bookshop, which is they market independent bookshops. So
Absolutely. That's a great point.
And
Thank you.
so the last question that we always ask all of our authors is, because we love authors and reading here at the PBALC Literacy Center, what are you currently reading, and give us two book recommendations?
I just started this book, and it is so good, but I literally just started. It's a novel called All the Colors of the Dark by
Okay.
Chris Whitaker. That it's really hooked me in. It's sort of a girl goes missing. It's several decades ago. Totally fiction, but
Interesting.
it's a dark story, but it's beautiful.
Wow.
Let's see, what's a non-fiction book? I just finished reading a nonfiction book called 10x is easier than 2x. So if you want to
Wow.
up level your life, the
Mm-hmm.
author is talking about, instead of working twice as hard, is
Mm-hmm.
what, the good old American way is. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, take out take out these different things that are blocking you and kind of find your unique ability, and that will help you be 10 times happier, 10 times more successful, 10 times everything. So that's 10x is easier than 2x. That's by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin J. Hardy.
That book sounds like it would partner so well with Transforming Your
I
Stress,
know,
but right,
I
get both of them, and your life will be awesome.
know.
Well, want to thank you, Marcy, again for joining us and for having patience with us. We really wanted to feature your book, especially we needed to give our viewers some helpful tips on how to control your stress and helping get some help with their stress in the new year. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon. So all of our viewers and followers, make sure and check Marcy out on social media and her website. We'll put the links in the comments after the live stream. Her books are available everywhere where books are sold. And again, thank you so much, Marcy, for joining us. And we hope to see you at the next live stream. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.